Welcome to the Sleep Sense Show. As always, brought to you by the Sleep Sense program, where podcast listeners can get a free customized sleep plan by going to www.sleepsense.net/listen.
Hi everyone, I'm Dana. Welcome to the show. There's a misconception out there that you cannot have a baby who sleeps well and also nurses well. For some reason, there is an idea that the two cannot coexist, that you cannot have a baby sleeping well and also maintain a healthy nursing relationship. So I'm very excited to bring our guest to the show today to talk about how, in fact, you absolutely can both have a baby who is sleeping well and also nursing beautifully. Now, when I say that, I certainly do not mean that newborn babies are somehow magically sleeping through the night without feeds. That's absurd, and I would never, nor would any of our Sleep Sense consultants ever say that we should not be feeding hungry newborn babies in the night. That's not the point. The point is that you can, from day one, teach a baby to at least start down the right road to developing some really awesome sleep skills. So when they're biologically ready to start sleeping more consolidatedly through the night, they will. And you can do all of this while still nursing. So our guest today is Courtney Zentz. She is a certified Sleep Sense consultant. She is also a certified lactation consultant and a postpartum doula. She's been on the Sleep Sense team for the last 5 years. She's been coaching parents on all things sleep related and also nursing related. And she's here to share with us some of her best tips and her advice for new moms, and to just share the good news that there absolutely is a way to guide a baby down the road to great sleep skills and also be successful with your nursing journey. And it's my belief that we can actually make the breastfeeding relationship even better and get moms off to a really great start right from day one, because they will have time to rest, which is so important in those first few weeks when you're sleep deprived and your hormones are raging and you're trying to establish good nursing habits and skills. I mean, learning to nurse is sometimes one of the hardest things a person ever has to do. And when you combine that with chronic and persistent sleep deprivation, it's just going to make that experience even tougher. So at least by learning a bit about your baby's sleep needs, encouraging a baby to take long, restful naps during the day and start sleeping, at least 3 hours during the night in those first few weeks, that's going to give moms a break. And when they have a break and they feel better, they're definitely going to nurse better. So I hope you enjoy this conversation between myself and Courtney Zentz. Hi everybody, welcome to the show. I'm really happy to introduce to you Courtney, who's here today to discuss a little bit about her journey into becoming a Sleep Sense consultant. And we're going to talk today about lactation and nursing and sleep training and all that good stuff, and see if we can find a way to make all of these things work for us instead of against us. So welcome, Courtney, to the show.
Great. Thank you very much, Dana, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Why don't you tell us a little bit, Courtney, a little bit more about yourself, and first of all, why you decided to become a Sleep Sense consultant?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been a Sleep Sense consultant now for about 5 years. I have, like many of you, 2 children, and my firstborn, I was exhausted. So I felt like really I lived in a bit of Groundhog Day, and at about 8 weeks I was scared, overwhelmed, and wasn't sleeping, and decided I have to be able to do something about this, which was really what started me down the journey to my business today, which is Tiny Transitions Sleep Consulting. And the crux of it was I didn't really love being on maternity leave. I was tired, and at the moment I couldn't wait to go back to work because I felt like every day was so crazy and so chaotic and so unpredictable, and it seems probably a little harsh, I know, as I'm saying it now, right? I love my family and my children, but I didn't feel like I had control over anything that I was doing around sleep, around nursing. I kind of just struggled like any new parent. I mean, I had a meltdown because I couldn't put on a Moby wrap at the time. You know, when I found the Sleep Sense program, and really the rest is history. No sooner did I, you know, go through the program and have my son and I in a routine, and then really just became obsessed with sleep. And the rest is history. I wanted to learn everything I could about sleep and lactation and, you know, the impact of the sleep deprivation because I saw what it did to my family. And I became hooked. Tiny Transitions was born, and here we are.
That's great. Yeah, I know. I can remember those days as well where you just feel like, you know, how am I going to make it through the day? I'm just so exhausted and it's so demanding. And when you compile being sleep deprived and also the challenges of learning how to nurse properly and the whole, you know, everyone always said you should learn how to breastfeed, you should go take a class beforehand, but very few people actually do that because it just seems like way too overwhelming. So once you get into the first few weeks of life and you're trying to learn how to nurse and you're super sleep deprived, and it can just all really snowball into a complete mess. So tell us a little bit more about then what led you down the road to become a lactation consultant, and when in the process did that happen for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated in the kind of end of summer from the Sleep Sense program, and pretty quickly after that realized that the clients I was supporting, many of them were nursing moms, and I work with newborns, so they were kind of fresh out of the womb, and then I work with, you know, parents 16, 18 months in are still nursing and struggling to sleep. And I realized I didn't have the background to be able to properly educate them on the lactation side of things, and I felt that the evidence-based information was important, right? I didn't want to just be sharing my personal preference because I knew everybody's journey from a nursing standpoint is quite different, right? I think a lot of folks rely on sites like Telemom, which I did, and, you know, the consultants today don't have a background in lactation. So I actually went and took the Certified Lactation Counselor training. It's a full course with a curriculum test at the end. You have to, you know, go through all the certification processes, and it was wonderful because it was evidence-based, and I wanted that aspect of my consults so that I could provide, you know, information to my families that was accurate and well-rounded around, you know, the realities of having a successful sleep relationship while maintaining a successful nursing relationship, because I understand how important it is, you know, for many parents to want to have both. And, you know, honestly, today, many don't believe that they can. So that was really what led me down the road. That was about, I would say, 6 months after I graduated. I did that. So pretty quick.
Yeah, and I can see that being super valuable, because when you work with a new mom and she's fragile and vulnerable, and you start a journey towards getting better sleep, you do become sort of a trusted source, right? You really helped solve one really big problem for this mom, and she now thinks you can solve problems in every area. So I think it is a beautiful fit to kind of, you know, meld those two educations together so you can really round out the experience for new moms and help on a variety of topics. So when you were learning about, and you took the course and were learning about breastfeeding and how it works, what's something, or maybe it was more than one thing, that really surprised you about how breastfeeding operates?
I would say first is that the main foundation of breastfeeding is supply and demand, right? So I feel like there's just a lot of myths out there around, you know, it's about how big your breasts are, or the more fluid you drink, the more milk you'll make, or excessive exercise decreases your milk, and, you know, stress won't impact your supply. And, you know, the for milk, hind milk discussion, right? So there's all these kind of common statements that I see people making around breastfeeding, and honestly, the the foundation of breastfeeding is its supply and demand, right? So if your body's losing it, it's going to make more, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you stand on your head upside down, drink coconut water, and do all these crazy things, that you've read on these websites, it doesn't change the amount of milk that your body's making, right? I feel like every website I go on, they're like, if you do this, you'll make more milk. It's like, really, it's supply and demand. And I think for me, that was the most eye-opening, because I know myself personally, I stood on my head and drank coconut water probably for, weeks at a time to try to make more milk. And, you follow these sites and you try to do your best. And that was the biggest thing for me, was really just basics. It's supply and demand. I would say the biggest misconception around the type of milk that babies get when they're breastfeeding is foremilk and hind milk, right? So, when you talk with parents, they're like, I want to make sure that they empty the breast so that they get the hind milk, which has the most fat, which keeps them full longer. And the truth of that is, honestly, the composition of milk changes throughout the day. It changes the way it's taken, the timing of the day it's taken. So there's really no net fat difference in what you're taking based on the number of breasts and such. So just some of those common myths are something that I'm like a Mythbusters on. Look, a lot of this really just breaks down to supply and demand. If the baby nurses and empties your breasts will make more. If they don't, after a couple days, your breasts stop making as much because your body doesn't think you need it. So
right.
It's that's really kind of the foundation I found was the most basics, right? It just takes you back to basics.
Right. And so that discussion about emptying a breast, I can remember I didn't have the best nursing relationship. I was not that successful at the whole endeavor, but I can remember, people saying emptying the breast, and being a bit frustrated by that term, because how do you even know when the breast is empty? Do you have any thoughts around that, or is there any sort of indicator when a breast is officially empty?
So they'll never really be officially empty. If the baby is signaling to the brain that it needs, through the nursing, it signals to make more milk, the milk is available and will be available if a baby's hungry and is latched, right? I think if you're nursing and let's say the baby only takes one side, I encourage parents, if you're pumping or hand expressing, to empty the other breast and to put it in the fridge, right, if you have the ability to do that. And while at the time it may seem like a bit of a chore, it can help with the stress level of, quote, running out of milk, right? So the breasts are going to continue to make the milk and make it available if the baby truly needs it. I think a lot of parents, if they're trying to build up a supply, as a lot of working moms are, or, trying to figure out kind of what's going on with why more milk isn't coming out, we're not all Betsy the cow, right? There's some people that have oversupplies. There's some people that struggle with undersupply. And then, to be honest, there's some people that just your body makes what the baby needs. It knows that based on when the baby's latched, and that's how much it makes. So, it's kind of that balance of understanding sort of where you fall. I personally, with my first, I was pumping, I think the whole Pennsylvania Turnpike saw my breasts at some point, because I pumped everywhere I could. On the road, on the highway, in the car, at the wedding, in the stall, at the conference. I was pumping all over the place, to the point where, sitting in the Vegas airport, I had my pump attached in the middle of the airport and nobody even knew, because I used the freebies, which are amazing, especially for working moms. You kind of just slide them into your shirt and you can pump wherever you want. But I was someone who was so paranoid about running out of milk, because I didn't make a ton of extra, didn't have an oversupply, that I was, I felt like I kind of pumped all the time. And was it necessary? No. Did it make me feel better that I had a bit of a freezer stash? Yes. And did I give my baby formula when I needed to because I didn't have milk? Yeah. So it's like every relationship, I feel like, is so different with each mom. And that's part of the cool part when I talk with clients, because every relationship's different, every mother's nursing relationship is different, and every parent's desires are different, and you can work with all of them to have a successful nursing relationship, whatever you want to, call that, right? Whether it's nursing, exclusively breastfeeding and pumping, there's so many ways to define what that looks like, but it's good.
I like that you've said that, because I think a lot of moms get sort of stuck in this idea that, it's an all or nothing, right? I can remember being told, oh, if you miss one feed, it's going to interfere with your supply, or if you give them a pacifier, it'll interfere with your nursing and it'll ruin your supply. Like I don't think I've ever been so paranoid about anything ever in my life as I was around my milk supply. Like I was so obsessed with this supply. And so what, do you feel like that's a misconception we have about nursing? Like, talk to us a little bit about this whole idea of your supply.
So I feel like there is so much pressure put on new parents around breastfeeding, and it is great. There's research shows that it is a great thing you do for your baby, and but I feel like it almost takes it to the degree of like setting you up for failure, right? Mm-hmm. I was so stressed out, to your point, on my milk supply and having enough and what if I can, and I would cry myself to sleep because I couldn't produce this oversupply that I thought I would, right, coming into this prior to becoming a lactation consultant, and you feel defeated, right? I think everybody's relationship with how successful it is going to be different, and it's totally okay. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit to what we're doing with it and trying. And some people, it's going to work, and some it's not, and it's okay, right? Like when I work with nursing moms, I know how hard it is. I know how sensitive they are to protect the relationship and maintain it. And I feel like in some cases, a lot of the parents that I deal with say, thank you, Courtney, for not letting me off the hook, but letting me know that it's okay that, perhaps today I didn't have, or I did miss a feed, or I didn't have a great nursing session, or, I had to run out to the store and we had to give the baby formula. And guess what? The baby's fine.
Right.
Right? And so I feel like there's just a lot of stress around the pressure we put on new moms that you're going to leave the hospital and your journey is going to be perfect. Right. Like the baby's nursing and they're happy and everybody tells you how amazing it is, and you leave like high fives from the lactation consultants in the room, and that baby latches great at the hospital, and then you go home and boom, your milk supply comes in, and then all of a sudden your breasts turn to footballs. They're massive and hard, and the milk doesn't squeeze out quite as easy because now you've got a ton of it in there, right? So that relationship changes, and for a lot of my clients, they're like, my nipples are bleeding, this is atrocious, I'm in a lot of pain, what is going on, is my latch not good? All these questions that kind of start going through, and that's where in my newborn consults we work through the nursing and starting to build healthy sleep habits, because it can be very overwhelming. Like, find a lactation counselor if you're having trouble right away. Like, have one on call, basically. If you're pregnant today, have one that you're going to call when you get home, or join a lactation support group. There's some here locally where I am in Philly that are wonderful, that help you. They do weighted transfers, so you can go meet other moms with new babies. They'll kind of see how much the baby's getting from your breast, so you sort of know how much they're getting in a day. And just know that every journey is different, and it's okay, whatever that journey looks like for you, right? There's resources if you want to maintain the relationship with nursing, and you're able to. And guess what? There's many families that can't, and that's totally okay too, right? And, your baby's going to be thriving, and that's the most important part.
Yeah. And I think, let's just address the elephant in the room. There's a lot of people who believe that if you are going to teach a baby to sleep well, that's somehow at the expense of, or the compromise to, the breastfeeding relationship. And, we do get a lot of blowback from people in the communities who say that, you shouldn't even consider sleep training a baby if you're nursing, and the two can't coexist. And, it frustrates me, as I'm sure it does you, because I know, having worked with so many moms, just giving them a little bit of an education around the fact that, newborn babies, yes, there are times when they need to be fed, and there's also times when they need to be sleeping. And fatigue and hunger look a lot alike in those first few weeks, and just like giving them even the inkling of an idea that maybe actually let's try to get this little one to sleep and see if that's a problem, instead of always going to the breast. So talk to us, Courtney, from your perspective on, why do you think people are sort of not against the idea that we can be teaching babies to sleep well and also nurse well, and how you believe that it actually enhances the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does. It is super frustrating because I feel like it's something I never really understood, why there is the mindset around you can't have a baby that sleeps well and nurses. I've worked with tons of nursing moms who, quite frankly, end up having a better nursing relationship because, to your point, the baby is eating when they're well rested. They have slept, they wake when they're hungry, they eat, and they sleep. And when they sleep, they feel good, and they eat better, which means your supply is better, right? So it's kind of one of those things I never understood. We all want the same things, right? Like a child that is sustained and growing, but also that is rested. And it's important for mom to be resting as well, right? I mean, you go on a couple weeks of chronic sleep deprivation, that's not good for anybody, especially as you start to throw in things like postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, like chronic sleep deprivation. How you're, like, when I talk to parents, I kind of explain, like, how you feel in the morning is exactly how your baby feels. They just can't express it. And if they do, it's generally in the forms of fussiness or some aspect of tears or just the inability to settle or calm or not eat well, right, because they're just so overtired. One of my biggest things with kind of that post-sleep education that I got was I ended up going back and being trained as a postpartum doula because I wanted to fight the myths of you can't have a baby that sleeps and nurses, and I feel like all these different providers have such different feelings about it. And I think with the sleep training, which I hate the word, but it's one that's common in our industry, right? I think when people hear sleep training, they think it means close the door, let your baby cry for 5 hours, and we'll see you in the morning. And that is the furthest thing from what we do. And it frustrates me when I talk to parents. They're like, I don't like the cried out method where we're just going to leave them in the room. It's like, that's not what I do. When I work with families, it is a personal consultation. Right. We talk about what you're doing, right, and how you're going to do it, and what your family looks like, what you want, how old the baby is. Like, is it appropriate that a 6-week-old baby sleeps for 12 hours? No, and that's not what I do. Like, you feed a newborn baby when they are hungry, and you can also still teach them to successfully sleep, whether they're a newborn or at 16 months old. It's really just about the balance and making sure that you're meeting their needs from a food standpoint as well as a sleep standpoint, and the two are not mutually exclusive. Like, you can absolutely have that relationship with both, which is why I think what we do is so cool, because you can, but I feel like the stigma in the mom world today is that you can't, and I'm doing my best to educate parents that you can do both, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think back to my first son, I didn't know anything about his sleep needs then. That's, where I got my education in lightning speed, that babies needed to also sleep. But I can remember nursing or trying to nurse him and basically nursing him every hour to hour and a half around the 24-hour clock, because I didn't know what else to do. He's fussy, I'll nurse him. He's fussy, I'll nurse him. He's fussy again, I'll nurse him again. I just always went to that as the go-to, because that's what everyone told me, that's hunger, that's hunger, that's hunger. So then I do a couple of weeks of basically nursing every hour and a half around the clock. I'm beside myself with fatigue, and I immediately start to doubt my skill at nursing, and I doubt my supply. I start thinking I don't have enough, and that makes me crazy to the point of driving me into some postpartum depression, because I think I can't do this thing that I'm supposed to be able to do. My one function as his mother is to feed him, and I can't do that. And so, that saddens me that I had to go through that experience, and I don't want any other mom to have to face it. That 50% of the time when I was stuffing my breast in his mouth, what he's really trying to say is, I'm tired. I need to sleep now. That's what has to happen here. So if we can give that gift where we're saying, hey, let's try. Let's at least try to get this little person to go down for a nap or for his bedtime. If we can't do it, we can't do it. We'll go to a feed eventually, but let's at least try. Because fatigue, the need to sleep, is as important as the need to eat. And somehow we've forgotten that simple fact as well.
And I think the gap is nobody talks about sleep needs, right? There's not a course on sleep at the hospital you can take before your baby comes, right?
That's right.
But you actually can, you can live longer not eating than you can not sleeping, right? So there's no education around sleep, safe sleep habits, right? I mean, they talk about it at the hospital and such, but one of the things that I think is a missing gap is that education for parents around, the needs. Like, most parents don't know that a newborn can only be awake 45 to 60 minutes without a nap. I mean, I talk to countless clients and like, my baby sleeps 2 hours the whole day and they're only 4 weeks old. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're chronically overtired. And I just think that the education around it is something that I'm doing my best, and I know a lot of us are, to try to help parents understand. Because before I got into this career, looking back now, I mean, my son's 5 and he's doing great. And, when I became a new mom, I 100% had some aspect of postpartum anxiety and depression, and I didn't recognize it. My girlfriend, Lindsay, definitely recognized it. But, I didn't at the time, and we talk about it now, and she always kind of knew, and I talked to my husband a little bit about it. So I was always vocal about not feeling great, but I never felt like I was at the point of like, okay, there's a major red flag, but I definitely teetered on that, like something's up. And I think it's, the pressure of a new mom, the lack of sleep, the nursing pressure I put on myself, and, the chronic sleep deprivation made me crazy. And that was where kind of at like 8 weeks, it was like, I can't, like I told my husband, I'm like, I want to drive my car off a bridge. And I know that's not healthy and I don't feel so great, but I'm being honest with you. So like, we got to figure something out here. And that was when I found the Sleep Sense program, because it was just one of those, like, for me, it was the light bulb moment of like, I can't function like this, Mm-hmm. So he was great in supporting me. His response, which I always kind of laugh at, we joke at now, was, I basically said, like, look, I'm trying to manage being home on maternity leave and be this perfect wife and this perfect mom and get sleep and have dinner cooked and nurse and do all these great things that I feel like I'm supposed to do because I'm this perfect, new mom. And he's like, Courtney, just get a whiteboard. And I almost like punched him in the face, but he said, get a whiteboard and put it on the fridge and tell me what you need me to do, and we'll just check it off as the week goes on. And I will tell you, 5 years later, the whiteboard has saved our marriage, right? Because now it's like we've got this great, it was like a new way to communicate with him about, some of those feelings I had. But like, as a new mom, I'm like going crazy trying to be perfect. And it just doesn't, with all that's going on those first few weeks, like that whiteboard saved us. And it was great to be able to say, cool, let's check off, did laundry today or didn't. And he at least knew to come home and help with that. So I feel like that alleviated some of the stress of like those first few weeks. But it's hard. It's definitely hard to take that control back, which I feel like we have to, as parents, like as new moms, as anybody listening to this, like take control back. Let's peel the onion and like start working on little pieces to get you to the point where, you can sleep, you can nurse, everything can work in perfect harmony, and you can feel like you get that control back that I think so quickly you lose.
That's right. I love that tip. I think that's a great tip for anyone listening. Just get a whiteboard or write it on the fridge, hang a note on the fridge, or just let people know how they can help you without always having to say it, right? If it's on the fridge and I know I have a few minutes to help out, I'm going to go look at the fridge and do what I can on the list to help you out. So we got to ask for help, moms. That's something a lot of new moms just don't do enough of. So that's a good tip. So let's move now sort of out of the newborn phase. Another thing I hear a lot too is that if you don't continue to night feed, that you're going to lose your supply. You won't be able to make enough during the day if you're not nursing at night. And this would be an age-appropriate baby who's, healthy and gaining weight and is probably 6 months or older. So we're not talking here about stopping feeding babies before they're ready. But when they are ready and can start going the night without that feeding, is there any words of advice you can give to sort of calm those worries or fears that by now not nursing at night, somehow your milk is going to dry up?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny. A lot of the moms that I work with, When they do have a baby who, when we work together, starts sleeping through the night, I tell moms, hey, if you want to get up for a week or two and continue to pump and save that milk because the baby is sleeping now, great. You're going to build a sweet freezer stash in about 2 weeks, right? But what you'll actually find is your body's going to adjust, right? So you may have to pump just because of your, the discomfort that you'll feel those first couple of days till your milk naturally adjusts because it's not being pulled out, a couple times a night. But what you'll find is that the adjustment happens where the supply actually gets better because when the baby wakes in the morning, they're well rested and they're hungry. So they're going to wake up and they're going to take a full feed, they're going to empty both breasts, and you're going to have kind of this shift. So I feel like people think the milk just goes away, right, and you lose that aspect of the feedings. Really, it just shifts it to the daytime, right? So kids need anywhere between 24 and 32 ounces of milk in a given 24-hour period the whole first year. So if you're taking, 12 ounces at night, it's 12 less that you're getting during the day, right? So when you shift those 12 ounces from night over to the daytime, whether that be 2 full feeds, that are kind of happening right away in the morning to get you a good jump start, whatever that looks like from your relationship, right? Like the baby's going to wake and be hungry, and the feeding's just going to adjust. Your milk will adjust so that your supply is more in tune with the baby's needs during the day and not needing it overnight. So that it really, your body is such an amazing thing that it just will adjust in those needs.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's huge. A lot of people see it as a pulling of the feed. It's not actually a pulling of the feed. It's just putting the feed somewhere else. So it's like, you're right. Yep. You're not losing anything. You're just changing the time of the day in which it shows up.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. You're just making some adjustments, but baby's still eating when they need to, and if they're hungry, you feed them. They're babies.
Right,
so.
Exactly. Yeah, I really love that. And so I know there's so many things that we want new moms to hear, and they're kind of getting bombarded with all kinds of advice all over the place. It can be a bit overwhelming. But if you just wanted, a new mom to basically hear one thing about nursing, what would that one tidbit of information or one piece of advice that you would just really love them to hear right now?
Forgive yourself, right? That would be, I would say you're a rock star, one, because nursing's hard, but just, forgive yourself a little bit, right? Seek help and support. Know that you can have a successful nursing relationship with your baby. There's resources out there that many moms don't know exist, so seek help, right? Find a local consultant like an IBCLC at the hospital that can help you. Reach out to someone like myself if you want to tackle nursing and sleep and maintain both of those. Really, it's just forgive yourself a little bit, right? Don't be so hard, and know that everything you do is going to be unique to your wishes, and that there's a plan for that, right? And that's part of the cool things that we do is every family's different and everybody's wishes are different, and there's help out there for whatever it is that is going to work for your family, and seek that support.
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, if I could go back in time and tell myself as I was becoming a new mom, it would definitely be, forgive yourself and not be so hard on yourself. But I think, too, is to, I don't want to say go with the flow, but sometimes you have to adapt, right? Like while I was pregnant, I had this vision of what nursing was going to look like. I mean, I was adamant that nursing was going to be, the best experience. I was going to nurse my child certainly for the whole first year, that I would never give him formula, that it would just be, this is why I had breasts in the first place. It was to feed babies. Like, I was so headstrong in my ideology around what this was going to look like, that when it was actually happening and I had the experience, they didn't in any way match up. Like, not in any way did these two things, what I thought was going to happen and what actually happened, were polar opposites. And that was crushing. Like, that threw me for such a blow that, I held on to trying to get there for way longer than I should have. And so for me, I think what I wish I would have known, or what I would love new moms to hear if they're listening today, is that you have to adapt. If it's not working, or it's not what you envisioned, it's not living up to your expectations, that's okay. That you have to live in the moment of what you're experiencing, and to be okay with whatever shows up. So your birth plan didn't go exactly the way your birth plan was supposed to go on paper. That's okay, right? Like, this is life, and you've got to live it the best that you can. And if you're driving yourself crazy trying to live up to some standard that you created for yourself, that's not living your best life. That's not being the person that you should be experiencing every day. It's not living, to your full potential.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, you've got to just, if it's not working, change it. Like, that's what's great about life, is that if something's just really not working for you, there's no reason why you can't figure out a way to make it work, whatever that looks like for you.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is there's options, right? You're not just stuck with, oh no, this isn't going to work. Is it exactly what you planned? No, but nothing goes 100%. And so that ability to adapt, and, maybe for some families it looks like exclusively, like my second child, I exclusively pumped for 6 months every 3 hours for 6 months of the day. I pumped because she had a tongue tie. It was like a whole mess. And I'm like, I'm a lactation counselor. I should be able to just shoot milk out of my tits. And it didn't work that way. And I really and so with the second one, even doing what I do, it was like she had a severe lip tie. She had a tongue tie. We had to get all that corrected. And so for us, it was like the relationship with nursing was I nursed into a pump that fed her in a bottle. And for me, that worked. And there's options for every family. Like, whatever your story is, whatever it looks like, is totally okay. Is your baby healthy? Yes. That's what matters, right? Yes. So I think that's the part that we just have to forgive ourselves. Like, it's okay. Your baby is going to be thriving and is going to do well, and it's okay, right? So forgive yourself,
Yeah, I agree.
And for some parents, it comes easy, and that's okay, and that's great. And I'm so happy that for so many that, you may have never had an issue, and that may be the case. It's just not the case for everybody, and it's okay.
Yes, I love that. I love it. All right. Well, Courtney, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website and my company is Tiny Transitions. So it's tinytransitions.com. And you can reach me. My email, or if you'd like some additional info out there, is Courtney at tinytransitions.com. I have a Facebook group called Slumber Made Simple, where I do weekly Q&As with parents and live streams and free trainings and stuff that has been going really well. And it's just a resource for tired parents. So you can connect with me in any of those ways. I'm all over social media. Find me, follow me on Instagram. I'm Tiny Transitions. I mean, you name it, I'm out there. And I would love to talk with you. I offer free consultations to just sort of understand what's going on and see how I can help. And it's just the most amazing career in the world that Dana has given, and I love it. I love every day that I work with families. And if you're struggling, reach out for help, because I am more than happy to chat with you. So.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Courtney. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I would encourage anyone who's struggling with sleep or nursing or both to, like Courtney said, get some help, because there's no reason why you have to struggle through either. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. As always, sleep well.